Hey YouTube watchers, we've got a great episode of Bowhunt or Die coming up for you this week. As you can see, Todd's not here, so we got Tommy sitting in. But this week we're going to be talking a little bit about aging deer. There's a cool segment from Tim and Troy in here, so we want to hear from you. Comment below, let us know the oldest deer you've ever harvested and how you knew the age of that deer, whether it was from getting the teeth age, trail camera photos, or you're just guessing. Again guys, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you like the video and share it with your friends.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Bowhunt or Die. I am Tom Alford, sitting in as Justin's co-host today in place of Todd.
In place of Todd. It's just not the same without Todd here, but got my buddy Tommy in the studio. Guys, we got a really cool kind of an off-season show for you this week that we're going to get into. But before we get into that, guys, the reason that my bow is sitting here is not just because we want to show it off, but we want to talk a little bit about a sweepstakes that we have running on bowhunting.com that a lot of you guys might not know about. If you log on to bowhunting.com and you click on the free gear at the top of the page, it's going to bring you to our sweepstakes. Now, cool thing about that is on November 1st, we are giving away a Mathews Halon 32. This is totally free to enter. You can go, you can sign up as many times as you want, and we're giving away a free bow on November 1st. But on top of that, we also give away a free prize pack every single month. So for July, we worked out a deal with our buddies over at HHA Sports. We are going to be giving away a combo prize pack for July. We've got a Kingpin sight and an HHA Virtus arrow rest. This is a brand new rest, guys. It just came out for this year. As you can see, this is my bow that I will be hopefully shooting some live animals with here pretty soon. But guys, this is probably about a $450 prize pack we're giving away in July. So make sure you log on to the website. Tommy, I know we just got your bow set up the other day with the Virtus.
Yeah,
what are you thinking, man?
I absolutely love this new rest. It's the full containment. I mean, it's a great hunting rest. It locks that arrow in.
Yeah.
And it's
super easy
super
to set
accurate
up
too. Yeah, super accurate.
Yeah, guys, we got my bow and Tommy's bow all set up the other day. I'm not sure if you could see this, but it is a full containment rest, so it's going to hold your arrow in there basically at any angle, and then obviously it drops away at the shot. Guys, all HHA stuff made right here in the USA, backed by probably one of the best warranties in the business. So make sure you check them out, and make sure you guys sign up for our contest. Like I said, it's totally free. It doesn't cost you anything, so guys, go sign up. You can win a whole bunch of free gear, including a new Mathews bow. So Tommy, with all the plugs out of the way, what do we got coming up first? Tim and Troy, right?
Well, first up we've got Tim and Troy doing a cool little segment on aging deer, and you know, based on trail camera photos, and they've actually done the research and the data. And
yeah, I mean, they go one step further and send the teeth out to get aged. So this is a really cool segment, guys. We hope you enjoy it. Let's check it out now.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Tim and Troy here from bowhunting.com. We wanted to take this opportunity to kind of answer some of the questions and conversations we've been seeing going around the forum. First, we're going to talk about the how and why we are artificially inseminating the wild deer here on our property here in Illinois. All right, no, April Fools. It's April 1st. We're up here at the property, Northwest Illinois. Yeah, that's the best we got. We're deer hunters, not comedians. But we're actually going to talk about, and we have seen a lot of conversation around this, which is aging deer. So we've been at this property for 6 years, and we've harvested a number of really nice bucks over the years, but we've learned a lot. We've shot anywhere from 3.5-year-old bucks all the way up to 6.5-year-old, and we did not know when we were harvesting a number of those deers really what the age class was. So when we first started here, it all starts with the trail cameras. So we have always put out stealth cams on this property over the years, and that starts kind of building the inventory. It creates our unique names that we build when we start looking at the body features of a buck. You really can't depend on the antler size, and we'll talk about that and show a few on why that is. But after we started educating ourselves through the trail cameras, and then you try and actually judge them on hoof, if for some reason you didn't get them on trail camera, you really got to do something else to really further educate yourself and tie all the different levels of intel between the cameras, between on hoof when you actually run into them out in the field. But then there's also, you can use their jaw bones after you harvest them to get a true measure of their age. We've been doing that over the last 6 years, so we want to kind of share of some of the harvests that we had and the confirmation of their age, so you guys can start doing the same thing. Use trail cameras, use your experiences in the field, and ultimately use this process to really tie it all together and get better at judging the age class of your bucks.
All right, guys, I want to take a second here and talk about how we age our deer post-harvest. There's really two processes you can do, and they both involve the deer's jawbone. One is through tooth development and tooth wear, where you can actually look at the molars of the deer, count how many molars it has. That'll get you to about 3.5 years old, and then after that point you look at the wear in the molars themselves. The problem is with this process is, dependent upon the deer's diet, wear can vary from animal to animal. So for that instance, we like to use a process called cementum aging, where we pull the two front teeth out of the deer's jaw, send them into a laboratory. In our case, we use Wildlife Analytical Labs. We send them in and they're able to take a cross section of the root of that tooth. And the way it works is, every winter a deer goes through a stressful process, and what it does is it develops a calcium ring around the outside of that root. The laboratory takes a cross section and they're able to actually count the rings to get an accurate age on that deer. So what we're going to do now is we're going to show you some of our past hunts that we've got on film, and we're able to look at the body features of that animal and then confirm it with the processes we've gotten from the laboratory.
The first buck we're going to talk about, which was the first deer I harvested on this property in 2012, it was a buck we called Rocky. This buck was one that we had trail camera pictures of, but if you really look at the footage on the day of the hunt, you can kind of see as he's coming in, he's got a pretty short snout, he's got a pretty good brisket that's developed, which are a couple of things that we look at. He also has a little bit of sway in his back, and his neck flows down into his brisket. It's got a good fade into it. So all those kind of things would lead you to believe that he's probably 4.5 years old, but he does have a flat belly line, and it's pretty tight for November and an age class of that deer. So we were thinking he's 4.5, but I was really questioning that buck. So I let him go past me first time, but ultimately he came back a second time right at 12 yards, and I made sure to put an arrow through that buck. So we did send in the jawbone, and we did confirm through our process that he actually was 4.5 years old. So that was a good peg we had on that deer. All right, so the next buck I want to talk about is a buck I harvested in 2013 called Skyrocket. This is one of my favorite hunts ever. Unfortunately, Tim wasn't there. The episode was actually called Flying Solo. But this buck I harvested in this area called the Bedpost. As you see him coming in, he was really close, only about 15 yards. So it's hard to judge on hoof in that situation. Wow. But fortunately, we had trail cam pictures. We found his sheds the previous year. So we pretty much knew that this buck was about 4.5. When you see him stop here, I grunt before the shot. You could tell there's a slight sway in his back, a little bit in his belly, but his legs are still pretty long. He does have a pretty thick neck that flows right into his brisket, but this is a situation where you cannot use antler size to judge this deer. He has inferior genetics, and so he's just an 8-point. But we knew this deer should be about 4.5 years old, so that's why I went ahead and took the shot. I was really excited to get this deer, but we did want to send the jawbone in. We did, and ultimately did confirm that this buck was 4.5 years old.
All right, so next deer we want to talk about was a deer we called Tommy Boy. It was actually the first deer I harvested on this property in 2014. He showed up on trail camera in late summer, and right there we had a good picture of him on stealth cam, and we just kind of had an idea that this deer was 3.5 years old. We knew he had some good genetics. One of those deer would just be hard to pass. So we actually ran into Tommy Boy on October 11th. Troy and I were hunting together in a spot that we call the Love Sack, and we were just about to get out of the tree, and I look out to the right, and here comes Tommy Boy. As you can see in the footage, when he gets around the trees there, he's got, you know, a fairly long snout, not as tight and Roman nose as you saw in Rocky and Skyrocket. A longer legged deer, you know, flat back, and that neck just kind of transitions into the brisket a little high. Circumstances brought that I hadn't harvested a deer in 2 years. Troy and I were jacked up. I mean, you can hear Troy in the footage just breathing like a cow in the background there. So we couldn't pass that opportunity up. It was a moment that we'll never forget, and that brought the trophy in the end. So we had sent the teeth in to the lab, and sure enough, Tommy Boy came back at 3.5 years old. Nice 145 3-year-old. You know, in the circumstances we are now, we would have passed that deer, but in that case, you know, it was just fantastic.
All right, the last buck we're going to talk about is a buck we call the elk. The name doesn't really match the size in any way with this deer, but he's one that ultimately in 2014 I was going after. We knew that this buck was probably 4.5 years old. So when you look in the footage here and the elk first comes out, you can see there's really not a sway in his back. There's no big belly. His back legs look really long. He is a smaller frame deer, and even his antlers, they just really never developed. His genetics made him a smaller deer, both in antler size and body size. So of all the things that we've talked about, this is something that you really couldn't use his frame to judge his age. Now, we go back to trail cam pictures. We did have some from the previous years. So we knew that this buck was at least 4.5, but thought he was 5.5, which is ultimately why I harvested this buck. We did send him in and confirm that he was 5.5 years old. So I'm really glad I was able to harvest him. But it's one of those things that all comes back to, you got to use your trail cameras. You got to use what you're judging the body frame. He did have a shorter nose, so that's one thing we kind of used. But that plus sending those jawbones in really helps build our intel to be able to judge all the different types of body styles and genetics that we have of our bucks in our property over the years. So what we're going to close out on here is we're going to test your skills. We're going to show you some trail camera pics that we have of bucks that we've harvested that we didn't talk about here in the footage, and we're going to see if you can judge the age.
Okay, so the deer you're looking at here is a deer we call the Nook. He was harvested by Troy's uncle in 2013. We sent his teeth into the laboratory, and the Nook came back at 5.5 years old.
The deer that you're looking at here is a buck we call Bob. My dad harvested him in 2013. We called him Bob because of his short tail, like a bobcat. But anyways, we sent his jaw in, and we confirmed, or were surprised, that he was 3.5 years old. That was probably a buck we should have passed based on his antler size. Would you have?
The deer you're looking at here was actually the first deer I ever killed on this property. He was harvested again by Troy's dad in 2012. We had two total trail cam pictures of this deer. We sent his teeth into the lab, and he is actually the oldest deer we've ever harvested on this property at 6.5 years old.
Hence why we called him Grandpa Alphonse. Okay, the deer you're looking at here is a buck we call Timber. This was another buck harvested by my father on this property in 2015. So we sent his jaw in and confirmed that this buck was 5.5 years old.
All right, the last deer on our deer aging quiz is a deer that was harvested in 2014 again by Troy's dad. It's a deer we called Chet, and we sent his teeth into the laboratory, and he came back surprisingly at 3.5 years old. Another deer that caught us by surprise.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this segment and learned something from it. I know we have from following this process and sending in these jawbones over the past 5 years.
Well, guys, that was a pretty cool segment from Tim and Troy. You know, aging deer is one of those topics that's always kind of hotly debated out there in the hunting community, whether it's good for hunting, bad for hunting. You know, we all do things for our own reasons. You know, me personally, I took a lot of heat last year for passing a deer that I thought was a 3-year-old. But, you know, for me, and at the stage of my hunting career, if you want to call it that I'm in, just you know, shooting another 3-year-old just doesn't really do it for me anymore. I've got a bunch of them on the wall at this point, so I am looking, you know, for some older deer. Tommy, you know, what's your take on it?
Yeah, you know, I'm kind of torn on this subject, to be honest with you. I mean, I tend to not really. The older I get, the more I want to pay attention to the deer's age, but honestly, if a rat comes through the brush and it looks good enough to me and it gets me excited, I'm probably going to have a hard time worrying about how old
well, and that's
that
the thing
deer is.
about hunting, right? We all do it for our own reasons. We all get something different out of it. You're definitely a different breed of hunter than I am to a certain extent, because when you see antlers coming through the woods, Tommy's like, it's a giant, it's a giant coming, and it's like a 100-inch 2-year-old. But I mean, it doesn't really matter, guys. We all do it for our own personal enjoyment and the excitement and the thrill and the fulfilling feelings that we get out of it. So, you know, if you guys want to age your deer, Tim and Troy have got some great advice for you. If you don't want to and you just want to shoot them and enjoy it and have a good meal, you know, so be it. That's all cool too. So guys, next up, before we get into some updates from our team, we're actually joined by John from Hunting Lease Network here in our studio to talk a little bit about their program. So let's learn about that now.
Hey John, thanks a lot for coming in our office
Pleasure.
today. It's always fun to be able to talk about stuff that has to do specifically with hunters. And when it comes to leasing of land, I mean, that's what Hunting Lease Network does.
Absolutely.
I personally and Justin have had a lot of success with your business. I mean, you guys have been a part of our show for at least 6 or 7 years now. I have personally leased land and have had good success. I mean, it's really a neat program that you guys have put together. And the fact that it's free is amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about what people get when they sign up for free?
Well, membership is absolutely free. Right now we have 175,000 plus registered members, and what it does, it gives you direct access to our website and every property in every state that we are in. We're in 23 states.
Wow.
So if you're interested in Wisconsin or Nebraska or Illinois, you could set your profile up where you will get an automatic email on any property in that area of your interest.
Sure, not to interrupt you, but that's the part that I like, guys. I mean, you know, here you're sitting back in your chair, maybe watching our show, and you're thinking, man, you know what? You may not even know when a lease is popping up right in your own backyard. So,
That's right.
you know, get on 23 states. That's amazing. It's completely free, and to be able to have, you may be in a position right now, right, where you have a good hunting spot, but you know what? Sometimes things change, and to be able to know what's going on and to keep a tab on it, I love it. I mean, I get my email alerts from you guys. I'm able to jump in, take a look at the piece. Sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't. And one thing that I think people forget about sometimes, John, and we can talk about this quickly, is the fact that, you know what? A lot of the leases do allow you to have multiple people, which helps keeps the cost down.
Absolutely. Well, that's the key. I mean, you know, unfortunately, a lot of people don't have ground that they own, or a family member that owns them, or someone they know. So leasing, it's just the trend today, and 2 of us or 3 of us get together. It's a very reasonable way to get a good piece of property that, you know, all of us managers go out and check out.
Yeah, and what I like too is I know the Hunting Lease Network also does a really good job working with the property owners at setting those expectations. I mean, I know with some of the leases that I've done with you, I mean, once you win a lease, you know, generally you have 2 weeks to get your paperwork in. Once that paperwork is in, the paperwork's very clear. And a lot of times, you know, you can do food plots. Sometimes you have full access both for turkey and for deer and for shotgun. They're all different, but you know, of course, as always, read the fine print before, you know, bidding on any lease. But if you want to get yourself a great lease, check out huntingleasenetwork.com. Sign up for free. I think it's well worth the time, and I've had a lot of great success working with these programs.
Well, we got to say thanks to John for stopping by the studio and telling us a little bit more about Hunting Lease Network. As Todd mentioned, you know, we've been leasing property through those guys for years. Tommy, you and I have hunted on some leases together with Todd. I know you've got your own lease this year, right, with them?
Yeah, I just actually picked up a new lease in March with Hunting Lease Network, and I'm super excited about it. It's a 160-acre piece. just west of here, about 2 hours, and
it's got some good deer on it.
It's got some great deer on it. I mean, I've been out there running trail cameras, and I'm pleasantly surprised to see how many deer there are.
Guys, I know hunting season is coming very, very quick. If you're out there and you don't have a spot to hunt, I'm sure there's a few of you. Make sure you check out Hunting Lease Network. They've always got new stuff popping up. You sign up, you get those email alerts.
Yeah.
And there isn't, trust me, you get the email alert and you're clicking on it and opening it, and then you're texting your buddies. Did you see that lease just pop up on Hunting Lease Network? What do you think? Should we do it? So it's a really cool program they've got. Thanks again to those guys for being a supporter of the show. Next up, guys, we're going to jump into a bunch of off-season updates from different team members. We're going to start with Matt Miller, one of our newest team members here in Illinois. Let's check in with everybody now.
Hey guys, it's June 18th, Sunday, Father's Day. Managed to get a couple hours to sneak out of the house today, so we're going to go back to that property we showed you just a couple of weeks ago and give you another quick update and hopefully get a food plot in the ground. So stay tuned and we'll give you more updates from the field. Bow hunt or die. Hey guys, just got out here to the first plot location of the day. We're going to do 3 separate plots today, and this one might look familiar. We were out here just a few weeks ago and gave you guys an update from this location, and since then I've gotten it sprayed. As you can see, it's pretty dead in here. It's been awful wet over the last couple of weeks here. We got close to 5 inches of rain, but I think it's finally dry enough for me to get some seed in the ground. So stay tuned. We're going to actually put some Heartland clover right in this plot here. It's going to be a kill plot. I've actually got a lone wolf up in the tree over to my right hand side that we'll show you guys in a minute. But we'll show you exactly how we do this with some really simple tools that each one of you can actually get for really cheap. So I'm just using a little Groundhog Max ATV disc in here. A few $100, you guys can have something like that and put killer food plots into the timber just like this. Stay tuned and we'll give you an update as I'm doing the work. All right guys, we got this thing turned over with that Groundhog Max disc. Now we're gonna get some seed in the ground. So we're using just a small hand crank seeder spreader that you can buy from a local tractor supply company for 20 or 30 bucks. Not using expensive equipment to put these little kill plots in here. So one thing you guys need to know, we're putting Heartland top seed trophy clover into this plot. This will be a kill plot that we plan to hunt this year. And Heartland, when you look on the bags of every food plot seed company, they'll have a tag on the back that will show you exactly what's in the bag. Heartland is 100% seed in that bag. Nearly every other food plot seed company out there is going to put almost 50% filler coatings and things like that in the bag. So with Heartland, you're going to get almost twice as much seed per pound that you pay for compared to every other company out there. So stay tuned. We're going to get this in the ground right now. All right guys, you can see I've got my little homemade chain link drag here. We're gonna go ahead and do a few laps with this thing to get this seed covered up. You don't need to bury this stuff deep. The smaller the seed, generally the more shallow you want it to be in the ground. So we're gonna do a couple of quick laps here, then we're gonna get out of here and head over to the next plot. All right guys, last food plot of the day. We are on the very far east side of the property right now. And as you can see over my shoulder here, there's a little ditch with a creek that runs through it that I'm planning to use for access to get in and out of here quick and easy. And this is a spot where the farmer was not able to plant this year. It was a little too wet this spring. Talked to him this week. They're okay with me putting some food in here. So the plan is today I'm going to get as much of it turned as I can. I have not had a chance to get this thing sprayed yet, but we're going to put some beans in the ground on half of it today, and then we're going to come back in a couple of weeks after I've had a chance to spray this thing, and we're going to put some Heartland brassica mix in here as well. So this is, in my opinion, one of my best bets for a late season spot, real close to where you guys saw me pick up those shed antlers a couple of weeks ago. That's only about 150 yards away from here, so stay tuned, and we're going to get this seed in the ground right now. right, guys, so you can see that Groundhog Max works pretty well. It's funny, the faster you go with that thing, the better it turns the soil, so you really want to sometimes rip on it pretty good. But I got most of this turned as good as I'm going to get it right now. I'll come back in a few days and get the thing sprayed. I am going to put soybeans in the ground right now, and I want to do that because we're running out of time. It's already the tail end of June, so we'll put the soybeans in the ground. It won't matter if I spray on top of those soybeans. We'll use the top half of the plot for beans, and then the bottom half of the plot, we're going to come back probably mid-August, and we're going to plant that Heartland brassica mixture there as well. So this plot will be half and half, and then every year I can flip-flop beans and brassicas. So stay tuned. I'm going to use the hand crank spreader. We'll get some beans in the ground. We'll use the drag you guys saw earlier to get them covered up, and then we're going to probably hang 1 or 2 trail cams and get out of here. All right, guys, last update of the day. Wanted to talk to you about these HME camera sticks. We're gonna get a camera out on this plot that we just turned over. And I've been personally using these HME camera sticks for years. They're super cheap. You can find them locally in your big box stores, so you don't have to mail order them. You can actually go grab them when you need them. And it lets you put the camera exactly where you want it. I also personally like to face my cameras north so you don't end up with sun-washed pictures. These things let you do that every single time and get it in the right spot instead of putting it where the tree happens to be. So appreciate you guys watching the update. You know, we'll be back here in a couple of weeks, so stay tuned. We'll probably have some velvet pictures, some velvet footage. Hopefully I'll be in here with a camera. Maybe we'll be able to film a buck or two this summer. But for now, I'm gonna get home and spend some time with my 2 kids and my wife. Thanks for watching today. Bow hunt or die.
Hey folks, Daryl Bell here, coming at you from Northwest Florida. Y'all are gonna have to excuse my white legs today. The heat index is 116 degrees, and I'm just not gonna wear pants with it that hot. I'd be in my boxers if I didn't think it'd scar you for life. But I swung by the farm here, and I just wanted to give you a quick update on how our food plot's looking out here. If you remember, about a month and a half ago, we came in and planted a 1-acre block in the middle of this field in sun hemp and cowpeas, and we surrounded that with corn. As you can tell, the sun hemp and the cowpeas, they look great. Sun hemp's 2.5, 3 foot tall, even 4 foot tall in a few places. The corn's looking pretty good, despite we've had about 20 inches of rain the past 4 weeks. It does need a little kick in the pants, so I just went and picked up 600 pounds of urea that we're gonna put on it here in the next couple of days when we time it with an evening rain. Now, believe it or not, I came in here about 3 weeks ago to check on this field, and this sun hemp and the peas both were only about 4 to 6 inches high because the deer were keeping them nipped off as soon as they came up. So what we did is we went and got 250 pounds of Milorganite and spread just on the sun hemp and the cowpeas. And if you're not familiar with Milorganite's actually an organic fertilizer that is derived from human sewage. So not only will it deter deer for a couple of weeks, but it will but it also has great micronutrients in it and is great for building soil. So it's a really good choice for anybody wanting to keep some deer off the food plots for a little while, give them time to establish. Now, if you decide you want to use Milorganite, you really have 2 options. Option 1, you can apply it simply just to keep the deer off of it. If you want to go that route, I've had great success with 100 pounds an acre. And then the other option is to apply it to not only deter the deer, but to also give your food plot those micronutrients and help improve the soil quality. And if you're wanting to go that route, I recommend going 200 to 250 pounds per acre, which is what we did on this particular field. So, with all that said, we did pick up a new farm in Christian County, Kentucky. That bow opener is September 2nd. It's July 5th now, so we're less than 2 months out. But even with it only being early July, we already have some great bucks on camera and some deer that we're really looking forward to chasing this fall. So hopefully the next time you see me, I'll be on the ground behind a giant Kentucky whitetail. Until then, bow hunt or die.
Alright guys, it's Tuesday afternoon. We've got rain in the forecast tomorrow. I'm just leaving work, and me and Dalton are going to try and get some food plots in the ground. I think we're just going to plant some Egyptian wheat and then come back later this fall and put some turnips in or whatever. But we also got to do a little blind maintenance. We had a big old windstorm come through late winter this year and knocked the blind over, so we're gonna get it back up hopefully tonight too, and pray for rain tomorrow, get these food plots going. So drive over to Dalton's farm and we'll get started. Bow hunt or die.
Alright guys, here we are, central Missouri. Had a little incident this spring with a tornado. Came through and rolled this platform with my blind on top of it. And so we got the blind off, got the platform resituated, put some augers in the ground and cabled it to the ground. So hopefully we won't have that issue anymore. But we're out here doing a barrier wall around the food plot and getting this put back up. We can't put the blind on it because I forgot all my power tools an hour from here at the house. So we're gonna strap the blind to the leg of this thing for a while and we'll get it next time I come up. But I'm planting Egyptian wheat around the outside edges of this food plot, about 20 foot wide, and then just leave openings where we want the deer to enter and exit the food plot. Last year we had a lot of deer in this food plot almost every time we hunted, but they were skirting us, or the deer that we wanted to be in range weren't coming into range. So we're going to try this barrier wall of Egyptian wheat and see if we can't get them to come within bow range where they're entering and exiting the food plot. But we're going to get it planted and get it run over and get it packed down good, and hopefully here in a few months when we're planting fall plots it'll be about 5 or 6 foot tall, and then when deer season rolls around it'll be 10 foot tall. So we're going to try it out. Bow hunt or die. Talk about redneck food plots right there. It's the only way we can get it done. We didn't have a roller today, but it'll work.
All right, we got it done. All but the blind. Dalton forgot his tools, but it is hot. Whew. Wish we would have started a couple hours later because it's still daylight out, but got it in the ground. Hopefully some rain's coming in tonight or tomorrow. Get this stuff growing, and then later on this fall we'll come back with some Heartland wildlife and fill the middle of that plot up. So for now, that's what me and Dalton have been up to, and we'll hit you up next time we do something involving some deer. So bow or die, guys. Good luck this season. All right guys, it is the beginning of July. Just came out here to check on this Egyptian wheat me and Dalton planted on June 13th, I believe. And it's doing pretty good. It's growing real good. It's almost a foot tall in the majority of the 20-foot buffer that we planted, and we expect this to be 6 to 10 foot tall by the beginning of September. So we also got our blind up, as you can see. So all me and Dalton got left to do up here is mow and till up this old clover and plant some brassicas, or we're not sure what we're going to put in there yet, but we're excited about this fall, and we'll come to you soon with our hit list footage. Bow hunt or die.
Hey everybody, Fitz checking in here from northern Minnesota. Just wanted to take a few minutes to get you guys caught up what I've been up to since you saw me last. I was able to put that deer down on the ground the last day of the season. It was nice having some meat in the freezer. I've gone a couple years without being able to get a deer. In my area, we're only allowed one tag. For a couple years it was buck only, and last year it switched back to either or, so it was nice to be able to get a doe down last minute. We had a long winter, but it was pretty mild, which is nice for the deer numbers. Although we did have a couple of the wolf packs move in late in the winter, and I know of at least 5 deer kills that I found from those wolves. 2 of those deer were actually collared deer, or had been collared, as part of a deer and moose study that's been going on in the area. I knew those deer fairly well, especially Patty. She was one of those deer. There were portions of the season where I would see her every single day. It's going to be weird not seeing Patty around, but she's been a good mama. She's had twins for like the last 4 or 5 years. The last 3 years, they've all been button bucks, so I'm hoping her button bucks from this last season will stick around since Mama's not here to kick them out this fall. Haven't spent a whole lot of time in the woods. I was able to get out one afternoon and do some scouting with my dad. We did a lot of walking through some swampy areas, but mostly some of these new clear cuts that we have around here. It's been an adjustment getting used to these new cuts. For the first time, I have a concentrated food source for these deer, and getting to know how that's changing their patterns has been a little bit of a challenge, but I think in the end it's going to be really good for my hunting. There just aren't any crops around here, and there are very few, if any, food plots. I only know one food plot, and that's about 3 miles from here. So these deer are completely on natural browse, so these food plots, or these clear cuts, essentially become food plots in crop fields for me. One of the neat things I found in the middle of one of these new cuts was this old trapper hunter cabin. It looked like it had been abandoned. It was quite dilapidated. It probably hasn't been used for a couple decades, but still kind of cool just to see someone spent the time and effort to drag all that stuff into the middle of the woods and build this cabin. And one of those, if the walls could talk, I'm sure there's some good stories to be had. I only have one camera out. That day I hung one camera on a ridge that I'm hoping to catch Walter, one of my hit list bucks. I know he's used that ridge line in the past, and with these cuts, it passes right between these two areas, so it's a big transition zone. And I haven't checked that camera yet, but it's been a couple months, and I'm ready to get out there and do that. I also need to get out. I'm going to be starting a couple mineral stations and get some cameras on those and start taking inventory of the bucks in the whole area here. So once I get those out, I'll give you guys another update as the hit list is compiled. One other project I'm hoping to get to is I need to give my canoe a little bit of attention. It needs a paint job. I'm going to try to work out a few wiring gremlins I have for my trolling motor, and I want to do a couple things to try to silence it a little bit for when I'm getting gear in and out of there throughout the season. So I'll bring you guys along with that as well. But those are my main plans. We've been busy here at the resort. We're up and running, headed into our busy season here, and that'll keep me occupied for much of the summer. And then before we know it, fall will be here, guys. It always goes by fast. It seems to go by faster each year. So stick with me, hoping to break that buck curse of mine this year, and I have a pretty good feeling it's going to be the year for it.
Okay, well, those are some cool updates from some of the guys there, and you know, Matt Miller's a guy that's basically hunting right down the road from us, and I know he's probably struggling with some of the current conditions that we've had this year, the rain, monsoons,
it's been
torrential
insane.
stuff.
I think, guys, we've gotten like 18 inches of rain. I think I saw the other day in the last like 30 days. I mean, all the rivers are record flood stage. I know some of Matt's food plots, he's got cell cameras on. He's got ducks swimming around in them. So you never know. You know, guys, we put these food plots out. You don't know if they're going to do well or not. You know, even some of the plots that you saw us plant in the last episode have got big, you know, wet spots in them where they're not really growing. But, you know, fall food plot season is coming up here pretty soon. So hopefully guys are going to be out, you know, basically replanting a lot of the work that we did in the spring and summer. Then we got, you know, Mike Fitz up in Minnesota. Not a ton of deer up there, but he's definitely got a few good ones. Be interesting to see if he catches up with some of them this year. You know, and then Daryl gave us a cool update with the Milorganite on his food plot.
Definitely a great tip.
Yeah, it's probably something we should have done on our bean plot that the deer are actually just destroying. We may actually go out and put some fertilizer on it, because honestly, if our beans don't grow in the next like
2 weeks,
30 days, we're going to have to till it under and do a fall plot. And then Dalton and Kent, you know, very similar to what we saw with Tyler Rector, putting a screen around their food plot. You know, it just helps those deer feel a little bit more comfortable feeding in there during daylight. So cool update from everybody. Guys, next up, we're going to do trophy photos. As we told you in the last episode, we're upping the ante. We're going to pick a winner of the best photos submitted in each episode, and that person's going to get a bowhunting.com prize pack. So let's check out the photos right now. Matt Repsa.
Fletcher Croto.
Frank Moresco.
Eldon Ringler.
Russell Malterud.
Buddy Alsup.
All right, guys, congratulations on some great trophies. Thanks for sending in your photos. The winner of this week's trophy photo contest is going to be Russell Malterud. We felt like Russell had the best composition, the best trophy photo. Some of you guys out there need to go to our website and look up how to take a trophy photo. There's a bunch of articles. Just use the search. We've got a lot of tips on how to take the best looking trophy photo. And always remember, hold it out super far so it looks bigger. So congratulations, everybody. Guys, remember, if you want to see yourself right here on an episode of Bowhunt or Die, you can email your photos to info@bowhunting.com. Go to our Facebook page, post them on our wall, or use the submit your trophy button on bowhunting.com. You got 3 different ways. So, Mr. Alford, that's all we've got for this week. What is happening in the whitetail world?
Well, there's a lot going on out there. I mean, those bucks are almost done growing now, and you know, you're starting to figure out how big they're going to be and who you got from last year. You know, I
got to admit, guys, it's been a really bad year or summer for trail cameras for me. I just cannot. I've had 0 luck with my trail cameras, whether it's just old batteries, camera underwater, birds flying in front of it. I literally it's just been really bad. I'm hoping maybe my next pull this weekend out at my lease will have something good to look at. But I know you and I went and pulled cameras the other night, and granted, we didn't have any amazing photos because the deer just aren't cooperating, but we had probably our #1 hit lister, right?
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
thinking show up.
Jimmy Dean showed back up. We believe it's him. I mean, giant.
We think it's him.
Giant.
Whoever it is, he's like 160 plus inch 10 point, looks like. So we're pretty happy about that. A lot of guys have been asking me if the deer I passed last year has showed up on trail camera. Unfortunately, he has not yet, but that farm, I've just had the worst trail camera luck of any summer of my life. I barely have any deer on camera, and I know they're there somewhere. So I guess only time will tell. You know, the other things kind of going on, we mentioned a little bit earlier, but fall food plots. Guys, we're looking at the first week of August. Usually, you know, August is the time when guys really start getting those fall plots in the ground. So if you're thinking about doing a fall plot, you know, the Nebraska blend like we've got sitting behind us from Heartland Wildlife is a great option. They also make a Rack Maker Extreme as well, which is that same blend of Nebraska's, but it's also got some buck forage oats mixed into it, which is, you know, usually my personal favorite. That buck forage oats, I really just like it when it's young and green and lush. So it's a good early season plot, you know, October through November, and then you've got the turnips, you know, to kind of carry you through late season. So it's a good balance, but guys, now is definitely the time to get out. I'm going to be out this weekend at our lease, giving the food plots a final spray, check cameras, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks to disc and plant everything for the fall. So now's the time to get out there. Bucks are just about fully grown, and season will be here before you know it. Heck, 2 weeks from now, Graf's going to be in freaking Wyoming with Dustin hunting antelope, which is just absolutely insane. So, guys, make sure you check back 2 weeks right here on Bowhunt or Die. We'll have some more great bow hunting action for you. We'll see you then.
For more exciting action, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram and receive live updates from our team members as well as the latest happenings in the bow hunting and archery world. Be sure to share your photos, stories, and experiences as well. And don't forget to pick up your official bowhunting.com and Bowhunt or Die gear by visiting bowhunting.com/gear. We have a full selection of hats, shirts, decals, wristbands, and much more.
You gonna do this? Can you handle it? Hey everybody, welcome to another great episode of Bowhunt or Die. I'm going to be your host this week, Tomas Alford.
I'll be sitting in as Todd's co-host today.
No, it's Justin's co-host. You're Todd's replacement.
My daughter wants to get a chinchilla, so I'm like, oh sweet, if the thing freaking dies and she doesn't take care of it, I'm just going to make a custom grip out of it.